I recently hit 10,000 subscribers. That is an amazing milestone that I am super proud of and extremely grateful for. So to say thanks, I thought it'd be fun to do a special celebration video answering all of your questions so you guys can learn a bit more about me and my channel. So this is my 10,000 subscribers Q&A. Man, it feels good to say that. Hello and welcome to Cinemaze, and before we get into the questions, I just want to say thank you so much. 10,000 subscribers was my goal for the whole year, and we managed to reach it already. I am so appreciative of every one of you watching, commenting, subscribing. This year has been really great for growth of my channel. Now onto the question. Thanks to everyone who asked a question. Hopefully this helps for you guys to understand me, the person behind the videos a bit more. I've received a few questions about the channel and then a lot about superhero movies in general. I'll start with the questions about YouTube, which feels like a great logical place to start. And so I think the best question to start with is, what made you want to start a YouTube channel? And I've been watching YouTube as entertainment for years now, since about 2012 in the early Minecraft days, and I'm pretty sure everyone who watches YouTube has had the thought at some point, I should make a channel. And a lot of you probably don't know this, but I actually started my channel way back in 2018. My videos are unlisted, but I've kept them public in a playlist called Cinemaze Classic if you're really interested in watching them, but I wouldn't recommend it. They're really not great. Anyway, back in 2018, it was a great time for films with the build up to Infinity War and Endgame, and I would constantly be thinking about films or watching YouTube about films and annoying people I knew talking about films. So I wanted an outlet to express some creativity and share my thoughts with other people who cared about movies. I'd often watch movie stuff on YouTube and people would make factual mistakes or not explain things in a way that worked for me. And so I thought, why don't I try this myself? But there was a massive blocker. YouTube didn't feel approachable. I think a big stopper for a lot of people who want to start a channel is that it just feels impossible to get seen, to grow. So why even try? And that 2015, 16, 17 era felt especially like there was no new growth on YouTube. It was an oversaturated market. Big YouTubers just existed and no one new was coming through. While the algorithm has its issues to this day, I feel like it has begun to favor new creators more again than it did in that era. Anyway, I always wanted to start a channel, and around that 2017 to 18 era, I consistently had one channel recommended to me, Chandler talked about. And I checked out his channel when it was around 11k subscribers, a relatively similar size to my channel now, which is a wild thought, and he was getting fantastic growth, and it showed me that it was still possible to grow on YouTube. And so because I saw him succeeding, I thought maybe I could too, and so I took the plunge and made my first video. And all these years later, Sean has occasionally commented on my videos and posts, which is awesome. In 2019, I stopped making videos for a while because life just got in the way, but I came back because it was always somewhere in the back of my mind that I still wanted to try this, and so I made videos occasionally, and then it's really only been since 2024 when I started a year with 2,000 subscribers that my video has taken off and grown to where I am now. If anyone is watching this thinking about starting a YouTube channel but is worried, trust me, just go for it. Even if things don't take off at first, they can pick up at any time. The video that really grew my channel was one of the worst performing videos for me for about half a year. Then it massively picked up and it continues to grow to this day. Once you start making content and have a backlog, it really helps. And then that leads nicely on to this next question. Who are your top 3 YouTube inspirations? And now you've hit 10k, what is the next goal? So there's loads of inspirations, but if I had to say the top 3, obviously Chandler #1 inspired me to do this, and he's the ranking guy, and obviously ranking has been a massive part of my channel. When I started the channel in 2018, I didn't want to do rankings because that was Sean's thing, but it's grown beyond him now, and it's just become a part of YouTube film culture, and since doing it, it's really helped my channel. Nando V Movies would be my next inspiration. In his main videos, he doesn't show his face, so he's a real inspiration for how to do voiceover content. The type of videos he does, more concept-based beyond just reviewing movies, also inspires my style. And probably my most recent inspiration is Coy Jandreau. I've always been aware of him in the YouTube space, but I probably started watching him last year. I've always read comics digitally, but his passion and knowledge for physical media really got me into collecting physical comics. And within that time, you probably noticed I've begun to include more comic connections into my videos, which I think really elevates my videos. We'll hear more from him actually later in the video. And in the next part of the question, my goal now, I don't have an immediate next subscriber goal. Let's just see how the rest of the year goes. I'm really happy with the 10k for now. I think the goal now comes down to consistency. I've made a real effort this year to upload more regularly. I barely used to upload once a month. In 2025, I've uploaded at least twice every month, and I've even started to add in some shorts content, and I think it's started to pay off. I've had 2 big videos this year, which is great and obviously helps growth, but really it's consistently pulling in 10 to 20k views, which is actually more important. And this is the first year I've had any level of consistent views over time, and so that's something I want to maintain and build on. So I think the goal now is to focus on consistent uploads from my end, which hopefully leads to consistent views. Then we have how hard was it to make a video, and also your favorite comic book. Congrats 10k. Firstly, thanks for the support. So how hard it is to make a video depends on the type of video. I script all my videos. Some things like ranking series or films can be relatively easy. It's essentially a bunch of mini reviews, so the scripting process is quick. Something else like suit rankings can take much longer because I have to do a lot of research to learn about the history behind the costumes, make sure I'm not missing any of them, find comic connections. And some of my more concept-based videos are even harder because I first have to think of a unique idea, and nailing down those scripts isn't as easy as writing things in a ranking list. Like my What is Avengers Doomsday video that I made earlier this year took way longer than was originally planned. It was supposed to come out 2 videos earlier, but it ended up getting split into 2 halves, and that second half took a lot longer to get that script right. But it was worth it. It's probably the video I'm most proud of this year, tying into the history of Kang Dynasty and the comics that might influence Doomsday. I think it's a really good video, and it started off performing really poorly, which was disappointing, but I ended up really happy with the views that it's now on, especially because my non-ranking videos don't usually do that well. Check that video out if you haven't. Like I said, I think that's my best video of the year. After I script them, I then have to record them, then sound edit them, which is the worst part of the process, and then obviously video edit them, and that can vary depending on the length of the video and the type of video I'm doing. I do all of this in my own time as a hobby outside my day job, so I only really have evenings to work on this, which is why I struggle to upload quicker than 2 weeks. And it's pretty much as soon as I finish one video, I'm on to the next video, and I always aim for a 2-week turnaround, although I can't always commit to that. And then the second part of your question, what is my favorite comic book? As mentioned, I'm a big comic book guy, and I try to include comics in my content where possible. I'd love to talk about comics more, but this is primarily a movie channel, and comic stuff doesn't do as well. So I love questions like this that let me talk about it. Now, it depends if we're talking about a full comic run or an individual comic. If we're talking about a full series, it has to be Ultimate Spider-Man, not the modern one. That is really great, and it got me back into modern comics, and I would highly recommend it. But the original 2000s run is my favorite. It's super approachable, where comics can be hard to get into. It feels modern and cinematic. It holds up for the most part all these years later, and it really nails the character of Spider-Man, and it makes you care about his personal life. I do love the Stan Lee, Ditko, Romita early stuff, and I do own reprints of those, and I've read them, but Ultimate Spider-Man is what got me into comics. I read them digitally about 10 years ago when I was younger, much like this version of Peter, so they mean a lot to me. And then I read them again earlier this year now that I own physical copies, and they're still great. There's only like 160 issues, which isn't actually that much in comic terms, and it tells a complete story. You almost never get that in comics, so it's nice to have that contained, finalized arc. So that's my favorite comic series, and if you want a specific run, I'd say the first 13 issues with his origin and then taking down the Kingpin. But if you want one specific comic book, I would go Ultimate Spider-Man number 28. It's like a bottle episode of a show, all taking place in Peter's school. It shows more of his personal life than his Spider-Man life as he tries to sneak out of school to stop the Rhino, but he just keeps bumping into the different people in his life. It's a great individual issue that nails the Spider-Man feeling of trying to balance his life with his Spider-Man life, and it has a great funny ending. And this leads nicely into Hey It's KJ's question, what is my favorite superhero? And if you couldn't tell from that or from all the content that I've made about him on my channel, my favorite superhero is, of course, Spider-Man. He's always been present in movies throughout my life. When I was really young, it was Maguire. Then when I was at that awkward school age, relating to some of the issues Spider-Man goes through, it was Garfield. And then when the MCU really kicked off and I really got into the MCU, it was Holland. Plus, I grew up watching reruns of the 90s Spider-Man series that really shaped how I see the character. And like I said, the Ultimate comics and those 60s, 70s era comics really mean a lot to me. His humor, his relatability, the way he always gets back up, all form the different reasons why he's my favorite superhero. On the Spider-Man topic, we have a great next question. What's your ranking of the 4 Spider-Man protagonists from the movies? Now that's dependent on what we're ranking it on. If we forget the comics character and we just view them as their own character and consider their journeys and the arcs they're on, it's probably Garfield last. No Way Home helps, but he ultimately has an incomplete set of films and the stories are a bit of a mess. Then we have Holland. Despite seeing him the most compared with the other characters, it feels like we're only just getting started with him and he hasn't had the chance to be his own hero fully yet. Then I'd go Miles. Across both movies, but especially the first, that are very strong character beats, strong arcs, strong emotional moments, and are able to tell a very Spider-Man story in a very new and unconventional way. But his story isn't complete yet, but if Beyond is as good as the other 2 movies, I think Miles could get to number 1. And the best from a story perspective is Maguire. Yes, we didn't get Spider-Man 4, but his trilogy does have a clear beginning, middle, and end for his character, plus a nice epilogue in No Way Home. We get the origin, we see him getting the girl, we have an interesting story with his best friend. However, if we're talking about my personal favorite iteration of the character, not their arcs, but who feels the most like Spider-Man to me, which version means the most to me, who is my favorite Spider-Man interpretation, it's an entirely different list. In last place would be Miles. I'm a Peter Parker guy, so naturally I do favor all interpretations of Peter Parker, especially in live action. But to give credit to Spider-Verse Miles, I do think that is the best Miles we have in any media, even better than the comics and the PlayStation games, because he has more of his own personality in the Spider-Verse films and less of a Peter Parker light, which he can often feel like in the comics. Then is Tobey Maguire. While I think he works as a character for the story that they are telling. He never felt like Spider-Man to me. A lot of people will say the line, he's a good Peter Parker, but a bad Spider-Man. To me, he's not a good Peter Parker. He is nothing like the comic character. Peter Parker has an edge. He can be a jerk. He isn't the nice guy who always loved the same girl since childhood. And in the suit, it's even worse. There's no jokes. He feels stiff. He doesn't feel agile or physical. It doesn't feel like Spidey. The aspect that I do think they capture with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man better than any other interpretation is the Parker luck, especially in Spider-Man 2. That's where he feels the most like Peter Parker. Then I'd go Tom Holland. He feels young, energetic. He's got physical talent. There's moments that really do feel like Spider-Man, particularly in Civil War, Homecoming, and the latter half of No Way Home. But there's still a lot of stuff that does feel too MCU-y and not Spider-Man enough. Also, his jokes basically stopped after Infinity War, which is a shame. I can feel he has the potential, and I hope Brand New Day unleashes it. He's done a great job at the Ultimate Comics spectacular younger version of Spider-Man. Now I want to see him transition into the slightly more mature young adult version of the character. But my favorite Spider-Man is Andrew Garfield. When he's in the suit, I don't see Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. I see Spider-Man. The voice, the suit, the physicality, the jokes, it's all exactly the character I read in the comics. While the Ultimate Comic run is my favorite comic run for Spider-Man, where he's around 15 years old, I've always preferred the young adult take on the character. When he's around 18 to 21 at university, that Romita era, the 90s cartoon, the PS4 game, that to me has always been the version of the character that I connect the most with, and Garfield's take feels the most in line with this, the slightly older, confident take on the character, because like I said, Peter isn't the nice nerdy guy all the time. He's confident, he's attractive, he's cocky. Garfield nails that aspect to me. The aspects that do hold him back are purely story decisions rather than Garfield's portrayal of the character. I was a Garfield defender before No Way Home, but when you do see them all in the same film, it shows how, given a good story, he's definitely my favorite. Let's go from talking about my favorite Spider-Man to the next question about my favorite superhero movies. A few people asked me this, including Nick from Nick Hippo Comics. If you like the type of videos I make and you like DC, then you will love Nick Hippo Comics. He recently hit 10,000 subscribers as well, and he's been growing insanely quickly for how new his channel is. He's got a great knowledge of DC and is really helping to keep the hype alive for the new DCU. I couldn't believe it when I found out he knew about my channel because I'd been watching him for a while as well. Seriously, go check out his stuff, and I'd love to see him talk about Marvel sometime too. I also got this question again as well, saying, "Hi Cinemaze, since you said you were answering some questions, I'd like to know what your all-time favorite superhero movie is. Mine is Spider-Man Homecoming." So firstly, I love Homecoming. I think it's really underrated. It gets a lot of really classic Spider-Man moments in there while telling it in a new and fresh way. The script is super solid. Every line is either set up for payoff later or a pretty decent joke. But my favorite is Captain America Civil War. It captures everything I love about the MCU. It benefits from a connective universe, ties it intrinsically into the story while still feeling like an individual character's story. It has stakes that last for more than one movie. It's mature, the jokes work, and they don't cut the tension. The action here for me is the best in the entire MCU because it's not just fighting a generic army or an evil version of the hero. It's heroes fighting against other heroes with defined power sets, so there's a lot of fun to be had pitting their powers against each other. I always find new part in there each time I rewatch it as well. But I will say Infinity War continues to get better the more I watch it as well. That's a close second. And then we'll go from that to Xavier Gonzalez's question, my favorite DCEU movie, and that's a lot harder for me. I'm nowhere near as passionate about the DCEU as I am about the MCU. I have no immediate obvious favorite. Most people would probably say the Snyder Cut. I enjoyed it. It's way superior than the Whedon version, but it's still based off a plot that doesn't work for me with the way Superman comes back and the team get brought together. And it's just way too long. Like, props to Snyder for getting it made and getting to do what he wants, but it did not need to be 4 hours long. I think there's a better 3-hour cut in there. I actually prefer BVS. Yes, it has its flaws, but a lot of that movie works for me more than most. Wonder Woman is great, but it does kind of fall apart in the third act. I'd probably say my favorite is Shazam. It's fun. There's no major issues with it. It knows exactly what type of movie it is, and it's the one I'm most likely to rewatch. They also ask, are there any plans to rank live action Thor and or Wonder Woman suits? And Queen of the Splintered, great name, also asks, are you going to cover The Flash in your ranking all live action suit series? And the answer is yes, eventually. Thor and Flash are probably the characters I have the most comments asking me about. I tried to line the series up with upcoming releases, so when Superman came out, I did a Superman suit ranking. So Thor is most likely to be next. I may rank this for Doomsday, considering he is going to be in there. So who knows when Wonder Woman and The Flash will come. But yes, eventually I will do all of these. While on the topic of superhero suits, I got this great question. If you could redesign any superhero suit to make it better, which one would it be and why? And this one got me really thinking. Some characters we've had bad suits for, but also good ones. I wanted to choose choose someone who has been done dirty. Some characters like Cyclops, Iron Fist, Hawkeye, I'd like to all see get more comic accurate looks. Green Lantern is probably the most high profile one that we haven't seen done well. I'm sure we will in Lanterns, but yeah, going all CGI was a bizarre choice, especially in that era. So thinking about superheroes, I think I'd have to go with him. If we're including villains, I'd go Apocalypse. That costume is awful and really ruins an effective and intimidating design. The comic design tells you so much about that character by looking at him, and it just gets lost in an over-designed, bizarre Power Rangers look. I'd also redesign Gore. I think they totally lost what makes that character design work. Yes, they wanted to see Bale's performance, but I think the comic design would actually elevate it. Honestly, there's loads more villains that I'd like to redesign than heroes, but I feel like I must be missing something. So let me know in the comments, what superhero suits do you think should get redesigned? J Collectibles asks another great question. What's one MCU film that you think ruined the reputation the most and one that you'd remove from existing? Interesting question. Firstly, I think more of the reputational damage has happened from the TV shows. Like, if they just had a few bad movies, I don't think it would feel like as much of a big deal as the bad movie plus a continued streak of bad TV shows. And even when they were good, they can feel like homework, and it just makes the MCU feel less special and harder to follow. So I think the shows did most of the damage. But if I had to choose one film, so what do we have? Well, we have Eternals. It was bad, and yeah, it wasn't liked by the public, but I don't think it massively impacted the opinion of the MCU, and it felt like a risk worth taking. I'd much rather a swing and a miss than a reshot corporate interfered safe mess of a movie. I think Eternals led to more issues internally, like Marvel wanting to take less risks and no longer trust directors with a vision. It's after that movie that they really doubled down on the studio interference and started to control directors even more. Love and Thunder seems to hurt a lot of people, but I think a lot of the blame went more to director Taika Waititi rather than Marvel itself. Honestly, I think the film that ruined the reputation the most was Quantumania. It was a mess, it ruined MODOK, and it wasted Kang. Many people thought he was the best part of the film, but he got beaten by Ant-Man. That killed so much of the excitement towards that character. The idea of his variance in Loki was interesting and threatening, but that post-credit scene just felt like bad drama school. And now that Kang isn't the focus, the one redeeming quality from that movie is gone, and if you remove it, we don't lose anything from the MCU. There were no lasting stakes, and Ant-Man ends up exactly where he started. So yeah, I'd remove Quantumania. Lou Solo Lou says, first of all, congrats on the milestone. Thanks so much. If you were in charge of the MCU, what changes would you make to the Infinity Saga? I love this question because we always focus on fixing the MCU now, but what could we have fixed in the past? Nothing immediately major stands out. There's small continuity things like the timeline mistake in Homecoming, making the ether a stone, not a liquid, or changing the color of Loki's scepter to match the stone that's inside. Those things just felt like retcons to force the Infinity Stones in there when they clearly weren't originally planned to be. But what's a major change I'd make? Well, I'd probably swap Black Widow and Captain Marvel's release date, and then remove Captain Marvel from Endgame. Now, that's not because I hate Captain Marvel or Brie Larson. I'm not one of those people. I just think if you look at Endgame, she doesn't need to be in it, and she doesn't add much. And they clearly didn't know who her character was, so she was written like a blank canvas. Sure, she saves Tony and Nebula, but I think that would be more interesting if Tony saved himself, echoing his origins in the cave. She destroys Thanos' ship, but you could give that role to anyone or a team of heroes, and she has that 1v1 with Thanos, which I think should go to the Hulk to give him the rematch from Infinity War. Carol Danvers does not need to be in this movie or adds anything. Now think if we swap her film with Black Widow, one of the biggest criticisms for the Black Widow movie was that it came out too late. If you release it before Endgame, it's closer to the time that that movie is actually set, and she isn't dead by the time her film comes out. In Endgame, we learn about Black Widow feeling like the Avengers are her family, despite canonically reuniting with her real family in Black Widow. That was clearly decided in real life later. If you do this first, then you have her family get snapped. It makes sense why she now feels like the Avengers are her family. It gives her more motivation, and she dies trying to bring her original family back, even though she knows she will never be able to be with them. And then you release Captain Marvel in phase 4 to kick off the new saga as a new introduction to this new phase with a new character. To me, that works so much better, and I think it would improve both Black Widow and Captain Marvel. Isaiah asks, my question is, if you were to direct a superhero movie from either DC or Marvel, who would be the character you'd want to explore the most and why? Firstly, thanks for all the support. Isaiah's been supporting my channel for a while now, and he has a channel of his own. I'd recommend going and checking his out. He talks about superhero movies, does really insightful short video essays, and has one of the coolest voices you'll ever hear. Now, obviously, I'm not a director, but if I had the option to explore a character and decide the story and the creative decisions they would take, Spider-Man would be a big choice, just because that character means so much to me. I've read so many comics, and I feel like I could do him justice. But to try and think of more interesting answers, I'd love to tackle Moon Knight. That show really disappointed me because it stripped away all the mystery and intrigue from the character. I'd love to do a mysterious, grounded exploration of that character that, like the comics for so many years, never answers if it's real or not, and keeps the supernatural stuff out of it. Also, something I've been thinking about from reading some of his comics, a Silver Surfer movie disconnected from the Fantastic Four would be interesting. This all-powerful being traveling around to different planets in the universe, trying to find meaning, struggling with his past decisions, working for Galactus. His comics often have moral, philosophical, existential themes. It would be really interesting to explore how this near immortal being experiences different planets and cultures. I think it would probably work better as a series dedicating an episode to each planet. It would have kind of an original Star Trek feel with the exploration and the themes, but I think that would be awesome and really unique. Next up, Marvin, one of the longest supporters of this channel all the way back from the 2018 days, asks, what's your thoughts on the HBO Harry Potter TV series so far? Much like you, Marvin, and many other British people of our age range, I'm a big Harry Potter fan because it was massive growing up. I don't think the cultural impact it had on our generation can be understated. So my feelings towards the reboot is why? It just looks so similar. It just looks like a bad Hagrid cosplay. I like that it's more clearly 90s. The original film seemed to switch between the book's 90s settings and the times of the movies. I also think they can improve on Harry, Ron, and Dumbledore's castings. They were the ones who never felt quite like the book characters, but everyone else was pretty much perfect, and Radcliffe and Grint are so iconic, even if they weren't 100% accurate, I can't imagine anyone else in those roles. Sure, the first book is missing Peeves or Hermione's trial, but the film is very accurate, so there's not much else to add to it to make it different. It's only really the later films where things from the books were cut or significantly changed, but honestly, I don't know if I see it making past 3 seasons. You also asked, do you think it's too late to get Mahershala Ali's Blade now? 100% it is too late. He's way too old. Even in 2019 when he was announced, he was older than Wesley Snipes when Snipes stopped playing Blade. They make it now, it feels like they're only making it because they have an actor attached, rather than making it because they have a good script, and that is never the way to make a good movie. Like, if you can't find a plot that works, just go all in on the action, John Wick style, and make that the focus of the plot. But they can't even find that. It's bizarre to me. At this point, I would be more disappointed if they make the movie with him than if they don't. Also, cast a Brit. Blade was born in Britain in the comics, and it would differentiate him more from Snipes. Marvin also came in with a third last-minute question, and he says, in Spider-Man Brand New Day, do you think they will bring or mention Uncle Ben, or do you think he doesn't exist in Tom Holland's universe? I would say he definitely exists in What If and Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. While they are alternate universes, they're clearly based off Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and he's mentioned in both of those. And in Far From Home, we see the suitcase has Ben's initials on it, and in No Way Home, when the other Spider-Men mention Uncle Ben, he doesn't seem shocked by who that is. So he definitely existed at some point. I assume he's dead. I would love for them to mention him. It's weird that it's been 3 movies and they didn't mention him. We know he visited May's grave in No Way Home, and you don't see Ben's grave. That felt weird to me, and we've seen from set photos he's visiting that grave again. I would love it if they put an Uncle Ben grave there. I think it would just flesh this out more. Yes, I think he needs to be mentioned at some point because it's a bit weird, and if we are getting this more grounded, character-based, slightly more traditional movie, they should definitely mention Uncle Ben. But he clearly exists in some capacity. Matt Says Hello asks, you have been made the head of Marvel. You have been tasked with making sure Brand New Day gets $2 billion at the box office. What do you do? It's an interesting question. Now, firstly, I do not expect Brand New Day to make $2 billion. In the current superhero climate, even $1 billion would be impressive. No Way Home only got close because of Toby and Andrew. And so the easiest way to guarantee $2 billion would be to do multiverse again. But I really don't want this to be a multiverse film. I want it to be a grounded Tom Holland story. So I think the best way to make a $2 billion Spider-Man film is to earn it, to build up to it like we built up to Endgame. So I wouldn't put the pressure on Brand New Day to get the $2 billion. I would focus on a good story. My goal would be to make Spider-Man 6 the $2 billion movie, because that's more realistic. You make Brand New Day grounded, you make Mr. Negative the villain, you put in the Punisher, you just make it a really good Spider-Man story that could make $1 billion. Then you make Spidey 5, you build on the Punisher by now doing the Daredevil team up that fans have wanted for ages, and you make the villain Kingpin. We know there is demand for this. And then you do Spidey 6 as the Sinister Six. And Sony have wanted their Sinister Six film for ages because they know that there's potential there, but they've never put the work in. But now the Sinister Six will tie into his past movies. You take Vulture and Shocker from Homecoming, Mysterio from Far From Home, Mr. Negative and Scorpion from Brand New Day, and King as the guy who puts the team together. Sure, it's not a traditional team, but the new Ultimate Comics has a few of these characters. The classic lineup has a few of these characters, but it represents what the Sinister Six should be. Villains who Spider-Man has slowly made enemies with over time from the criminal underworld who team up to take him down. This ties his whole saga saga together in a way that will be building to this one movie Endgame style. And I really see this as the only way to make a $2 billion Spider-Man movie without doing multiverse. If you like this idea, check out my Sony Sinister 6 video where I pitched this in more detail way before Brand New Day was announced, and now it feels even more possible than back then. Next up, what cameo / role are you most excited for in either Doomsday or Secret Wars? It can be as unlikely as you want. For me, I really like the idea of a World War Hulk played by Edward Norton. Interesting question. Now, Doomsday, I'd rather not be the cameo fest movie. I'd rather keep it contained to establishing the Avengers and Doom. For Secret Wars, yeah, it's the unlikely cameos that interest me. The Spider-Men returning, the original Fantastic Four, the original X-Men, it all feels possible now because we've seen parts of it. So while it'll be fun, none of that is as exciting. It's the unlikely ones that are fun. So yeah, a Norton Hulk would be insane because it's just so unexpected. That's why I like Black Bolt in Doctor Strange 2 and Gambit in Deadpool 3, because I never thought we would see those. I don't know what would shock me at this point. Ghost Rider feels possible considering Cage cameoed in The Flash. Yes, he had a bad experience, but I'm sure they could get him back. Affleck as Daredevil could be fun because they considered him for Deadpool. Maybe I'd like some of the older stuff like Nicholas Hammond Spider-Man or Japanese Spider-Man. Just something unexpected. You know what? It's just come to me. Howard the Duck. That movie is so hated, no one would expect that. Now, I did get a final question from one of the inspirations I mentioned earlier. I asked Coy Jandreau in a live stream for a question, and this is what he asked.
Like, Cinemaze! What up, Cinemaze? Congratulations on 10K. That is commendable, man. Do something fun with ranking in honor of the Batman 2, ranking your favorite Batman villains from all of the Batman movies. Everyone ranks the Batmans, but rank the villains because there's more of those to play with. So that would be my question, Cinemaze. Ranking the cinematic Bat villains, because that's fun. Joker's my number one.
Now, that's a great question, and I think he happened to pick rankings without knowing that that is something that I actually do on this channel. But anyway, this video is going on long enough already, and ranking these Batman villains would take ages, so I will actually save this question for a future full-length video, so look out for that. So for now, this was my 10,000 subscriber Q&A. This was super fun to do, and thank you again for subscribing and getting me here. I hope this is just the start of a big journey for my channel, and I hope you guys will continue to watch with me. And if for some reason this is your first video you've seen of me, be sure to subscribe to see more videos like this on Marvel, DC, or anything else amazing going on in cinema. But for now, thanks for watching Cinemaze.